Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. I am Simply G, and today I'm going to be showing off all of the things that I got for the month of November. There's a little bit here, not as much as some previous months, but December is going to be big because I've already spent money in sales, and I already know I'm going to have a lot of stuff. There's still plenty of stuff here to talk about and show off, but next month is going to be the big one. But I hope you guys enjoy. I'll get straight into it, and yeah. First and foremost is something that I bought. I bought it from Manga, so it's a Japanese release, and I bought this because I adore this show. I love it a whole lot. It was how I was introduced to this particular series, but this series, the anime at least, has never had a English release, and there's a couple different reasons for that. Mainly, I think, is the actual subject matter, but also I believe one of the actresses for one of the minor characters in this show was found guilty of drug-related crimes, I believe drug possession, and because of that, this actual show is not available to buy new anymore. Japan has a lot of very strict laws and strict punishments on, I guess, drug abuse and drug crimes, which I don't think is a good thing, especially when their criminal punishment for other crimes is so lax. But that's neither here nor there. This show is beautiful, and regardless of that issue, I have wanted to own this series for a very, very, very long time. If it ever, by some miracle, gets an English release, I will be happy and absolutely purchase it, but as for now, it is available on Crunchyroll, I think, still, so you can watch it subtitled there. But this is Wandering Sun, or Horo Musuko, so this comes with the Animate, I believe, limited box, and contains all 6 of the single Blu-ray releases. This, of course, for people who followed my channel for a long time, is the story of 2 transgendered kids in, this particular series is set when they're starting middle school, along with their friends and sort of their struggles with their gender identity and acceptance and the people around them. It's fantastic. People who've watched my channel for a long time know I'm a big fan of this series. It's an absolute crime that the manga is, dropped in English. This series just hasn't had a lot of luck making it outside of Japan, which is such a shame. I do think a huge reason for that is because of when it came out, it was just before sort of this current wave of LGBT and queer manga hit, and anime as well hit, so it was a little bit before its time. People weren't nearly as accepting of these types of themes and these types of stories, so I think if it was released now, it would have a better chance. But personally, this was actually one of the first queer series that I ever encountered within manga and anime. So it means a whole lot to me. It's not a perfect series, but I think there's such a genuineness to it that other series don't have. And especially at the time, there wasn't a lot of other manga or anime who would talk about this type of subject matter and have protagonists who were struggling with their gender identity. It's phenomenal. I love it. This particular anime adaptation is just beautiful. It's done in a watercolor style, and I highly, 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 highly encourage anyone who has a Crunchyroll subscription to watch it there. I don't know. I think it's 11 episodes on there, because when it first was released, episodes 10 and 11 were kind of smushed into one episode, and then so it was part of the Notamine slot, which historically has always been like an 11 episode run length for Notamine shows. This was one of those shows, but when it was released on disc, I believe the penultimate episode was expanded into 2 separate episodes. So it was 11 episodes when it aired, but when it was released on disc, it was 12 episodes. I'm not sure of the differences in that. Obviously, there's some things that were added to that penultimate episode to make the almost last 2 episodes. But regardless, it's beautiful. I highly, highly recommend it. And I do hope that one day we might see an English release for this series in some form, because it deserves to be seen by more people. Another box set, Blu-ray, I bought this locally during a store sale. And this means that I have finished with the limited editions of this series. I still need to get some bits and pieces here for this series, but I now have the entirety of Classic Sailor Moon, thanks to this release of Sailor Moon Sailor Stars, which is the 5th and final season of Classic Sailor Moon. I still need to buy part 2 of season 4, which is Super S, and then also part 2 of this season as well. But this is the local Australian release for this classic series. And I've said before with regards to this release or this series that I'm not a hugely nostalgic fan, I should say, for the series, just because I didn't really have the opportunity to watch it a lot when I was a kid. So I didn't, I guess, connect to it like a lot of people did back when Sailor Moon was on television. But it has been kind of an adventure to go back and to watch it for the first time. There's a lot of really interesting things that Classic Sailor Moon has done. And it, of course, isn't a perfect series. It was made fairly cheaply. Of course, it was made for kids as well. And it's just interesting. Like, it's obviously very emblematic of this era of kids anime. And it's been fun. And it is wonderful that for the first time ever, fans and newcomers alike have the opportunity to watch Sailor Moon in its entirety, uncut, with a new shiny polished dub as well, and subtitles, and every iteration you'd want to watch it in, aside from, of course, maybe the original dub, which was censored and thus impossible to kind of bring to disc. But it's really, really wonderful. And yeah, I mean, I think all classic shows like this do deserve to have a nice disc release, because they are important for a lot of people. They're, Sailor Moon especially, I think, and Pokemon to a certain extent as well, kind of formed a lot of people's almost personalities. They imprinted it on it very early, and thus have, like, it's part of who they are and how they recognize themselves. And the fact that it's taken till probably 2016, when the first sets were being released, to come out in its entirety on disc is, or at least as like how it was meant to be seen originally on disc, is kind of amazing that it has taken so long. But again, kind of emblematic of people from my generation of anime fan, insofar as like age, not really, because I'm I came into the hobby later, but people who are my age who started watching anime a lot earlier, we now have buying power. So it makes sense that these sorts of shows are coming to a more complete nostalgic release that fans can enjoy. But yeah, really, really happy to have this. I still need to get, as I said, the part 2 for season 4 and season 5. I also have a movie or 2 to pick up still. I don't know. I need to check. And I'm still only about 3/4 of the way through the second season, so I do need to kind of pick up my watching for this series. It's one that I kind of can put on in the background and not really worry about. But it's been a fun ride, and I look forward to watching it all, hopefully in the next year or so. Next, another local release. This is one that I bought from a seller on Gumtree, which for newcomers to the channel is basically like Craigslist for Australians. This is just another one of KyoAni's shows that I needed to pick up to be able to say that I have all of their shows on disc now. And this is Full Metal Panic, the second raid. So that means I only need Fumofu, I believe, for the Full Metal Panic stuff. If I wanted to continue buying Full Metal Panic, I don't have the 4th season either, so, I mean, there's still more for me to get, but this is actually my favorite season of Full Metal Panic. The first season is solid. I don't really like the comedy of Fumofu a huge amount. There are some things that I do find funny, other things I don't. Just comedy, especially comedy in a lot of anime, is like very hit or miss for me. And unfortunately, like Fumofu is much more miss than hit. But it is beloved by a lot of people, and it was the first season that of Full Metal Panic that KyoAni worked on, I believe. This was the second season that they worked on. Full Metal Panic is an interesting show, or adaptation, I should say, because there's been 3 different anime studios who've worked on it over the course of its life. The first season was done by Satelight, I want to say. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. I may be completely wrong. The second and I guess 2.5 season-ish, or second and third, however you want to qualify it, was done by Kyoto Animation. So that's this, as well as Full Metal Panic Fumofu. And then the 4th season, or the sequel season to this series, this season, is Invisible Victory, which I have seen. I watched it streaming, and it's good. Ends on a cliffhanger, which is a bit annoying. So I don't know whether or not we'll see another season of Full Metal Panic in the future. It would make sense, because I think the series is definitely a classic for a lot of mecha fans who are getting into it like in the early 2000s. The light novels are still very popular, and they're currently coming out in English from J-Novel. I've been reading the light novels. They're fun. I'm not a super duper huge Full Metal Panic fan, but for what it is, it's a pretty good time. And I do think the light novels, as well as this season, definitely play with the idea of like child soldiers and the stress of that situation very, very well. I don't watch a huge amount of mecha, but I always do like when they look into the psychology of being in this situation, rather than necessarily just celebrating, a protagonist who can fight with a robot. So yeah, not a perfect series, but I do this is my favorite season of it, and I do actually want to rewatch the first and at least this season, because it's been a long time, and having read the novels, I'd like to see how they compare to what was going on in the novels, my experience reading them, and how I remember them. So yeah, I look forward to that. Last for Blu-rays is not a it's not a local release, but I did buy it from a local seller who I think is just getting rid of their collection. They have a whole bunch of US releases. Nothing that I was super duper interested in aside from this, because I've been meaning to watch this for a long time. And that is Diebuster the movie, which is technically Gunbuster, the movie version of Gunbuster 2, which is a sequel to Gunbuster, obviously, which was I think like a 4 or 6 episode OVA series. So this kind of like squishes the OVA series into a film. I've heard like pretty mixed things. People think that the film adaptation is not as good as the OVA version. I haven't watched Gunbuster yet, but spoilers for a pickups video. I don't know when, because I don't know when I'm going to pay for my proxy to ship to me, but it is one that I've picked up in the Sentai Filmworks' sales, and I've been looking at this for a long time and just never got around to it. As you can see, this is one of the it's like a Bandai print that they used to have. So this is an old disc. Honeyami's, that's that movie, right? But yeah, so I've been meaning to get this for a long time. It's just a single disc. It has like a booklet, and then I guess this is the explanation of, all of the stuff that is related to Gunbuster, I should say, and like all the characters, and giving you kind of a background before you go into this movie, so you're not completely lost. So yeah, I know that Gunbuster 2, what this is like based off of, hasn't had a Blu-ray release yet or ever. So if you're wanting to watch it in Blu-ray quality, then this is kind of the way to go. And from what I understand, the animation is beautiful. I've seen clips here and there, and I have, as I said, I've wanted to watch it for ages, but I'm probably gonna wait until I watch Gunbuster before I watch this. So yeah, it's not super duper high on the priority list right now, but I'm happy that I got it, especially locally, for such a good deal. And finally, for anime, we have some DVDs. People who follow my channel know that I kind of tend to avoid buying DVDs just because I prefer Blu-rays 99.99% of the time. Some shows don't have Blu-ray releases, which is a shame because some shows don't really need them, but even like SD on Blu-ray is, in my opinion, a good option. But the shows that I pick up on DVDs aren't really the type that are ever gonna get SD on Blu-ray kind of release because they're not popular. So this has a couple of releases in the US. You can buy it from the Save line very easily from Funimation, and I didn't do that. I just picked up the local releases just because overall it was cheaper, but it is very easy to find in the US if you're wanting your own set. But this is Shock and Horror, who could have guessed it, Nabari no O, Collection 1 and 2. So this is the anime adaptation of of the manga. It's the type of adaptation that has its own ending because it was airing when the manga was still ongoing. I believe this anime came out probably around volume 9 or 10-ish of the manga, which is a 14-volume series. So they just kind of did their own thing, went in their own direction with it. And people who have been following my channel for a long time know that I'm a recent fan of Nabari no O, but it's one that I've fallen in love with incredibly hard, incredibly quickly. This is the story of a young boy, Miharu, who is he's what is known as, like, he has this special, I guess, ninja art within him, and all of these other ninja clans are wanting to get this art, which allows them the power to, like, do whatever they want, basically, or like make dreams or wishes come true. It's a super duper most powerful art, and whoever has control of it becomes the Nobari no, or like king of the shadow world of these ninjas. Miharu himself doesn't really have much interest in getting involved with all of these warring clans of ninjas, but there is one group called the Grey Wolves who have a real want to collect all of these secret hidden ninja arts, and on that group there is an assassin called Yoite, who is this character here. So we have Miharu and Yoite, and they're really the main characters of this series. Miharu also has friends from a particular, from his town, they're classmates, but they've been put there to kind of protect him, as well as a particular teacher in their school. And as I said, he really doesn't have any interest in getting involved until Yoite kind of threatens his friends and the people important to him. And then it's interesting because then later they make a deal to kind of, I don't want to spoil it because, okay, like that premise, how I explained it, sounds, in my opinion, like something I would never read and never enjoy, and like, because I'm not really into the whole ninja clans fighting over something. It's just not my thing. And I've told the story before on the channel, but my first interaction with Nobari no was with the anime. It was a trailer for the show on one of the other discs in my collection. I'd seen this trailer a lot, and it never impressed me. It never sounded like something I'd want to watch. It kind of, I believe they wanted to sell it as like a fun, like action comedy series, and like the tone of the trailer really made it something that I did not want to watch. So I avoided it for years and years and years. Even when I heard about the manga and saw manga in people's collections, I was like, oh, I recognize that, but I'm not going to read it because like I kind of know what the story is about. Even when people would say that they loved it and that it was something like so much better than a lot of the stuff that they were reading. And obviously with ninjas, in my brain, I make the connection with like Naruto, obviously, like one of the most popular series ever, another series that I haven't watched. But that's where my thought process goes. And I'd heard the manga explained as like, it's not Naruto, don't expect Naruto when you go into it, which is good for me and absolutely totally true, but it still didn't kind of dissuade my hesitation for the series. It wasn't until many, many, many years later when I started reading or started hearing about Our Dreams at Dusk or Shimanami Tasagare that I was intrigued. I really enjoyed what I'd seen of that series. There were scans floating around online, and it was just so beautiful and wonderful. And I wanted to know if that creator had made anything else and if it was available in English. And lo and behold, Nobari no was and is. And so I kind of got over my fear and my like hesitation because I had had a good experience with one of their other series, Yuki Kamitani's other series, and I quickly fell in love with Nobari no. The first couple volumes are a little bit of their time. It was an action series from, like an action shonen from the mid 2000s, although it always felt more like, tone-wise, even then, like a Fruits Basket. There'd be kind of serious parts, but also comedy, and so it wasn't something that, like, it was very enjoyable, but I was like, okay, this is good. Not my favorite, but I'm enjoying it. Volume 4 really kicks it off, and then from then on, it just absolutely becomes something so much more than the first volumes would suggest it would be. And by the end, once volume 10 hits, you're emotionally broken. Once volume 14 hits, it honestly became one of my absolute favorite reads when I was reading it. and it's become an incredibly special series to me. I adore Nabarino, and I think this series represents the evolution of a creator so well, because from the beginning, you can see how much Kamatani was relying on what was popular at the time and how manga was kind of meant to be for that era, and then them finding themselves and becoming more of the creator that I know they are and that they have become since. It's just phenomenal. It's beautiful. And this show, although Funimation tried to paint it as an action comedy, and although it does have elements of that, is so much more than that. And I won't say that this is a perfect anime. It's made very cheaply, for one. It, of course, is not a complete adaptation. It does have an anime original ending, which goes a little bit off the rails and goes in a little bit of crazy directions, but it's honestly not that far off of the original manga in regards to tone. And by the end of it, I was still crying over it, because I do love these characters so much, and I do think that it was able to capture a lot of the good parts of this series, even though it's not exactly the same. So, I mean, I've been talking about this series for far too long, but I watched this series via Funimation's YouTube channel, and because, again, I'd heard of it, and I wanted to finally give it a second try, because, as we all know, we grow and change as people, but also, I just never gave the series a proper try. I didn't give it the benefit of the doubt, and I'm glad that I did, because although, as I said, it isn't perfect, there's some things that I know people aren't going to like, especially if you are more interested in like an action comedy, kind of fast-paced, and especially high quality like animation shonen series, then this isn't for you. I wouldn't say it has the same level of polish or even excitement or pacing that something like a My Hero Academia or a Demon Slayer has, but it has other things to it and an emotionality that a lot of more typical shonen doesn't. And I'm so glad that I now have it in my collection and I can watch it again, because I watched it subtitled. I might give the dub a shot, but I'm kind of Funimation dubs at the time were very samey, so I don't know if I'm going to, but we'll give it a shot. Okay, on to manga. First and foremost, we have one volume that is like quote-unquote normal tankobon or volume size, and that is highly anticipated by me, volume 28 of Black Butler and by Yana Toboso. This is wonderful, and I don't want to open it on camera because there's a lot of spoilers, and I don't want to ruin the experience for anyone, but it's so good, guys. It's so good. Oh my god. I know that, so I've heard people complain about this particular volume insofar as pacing, because like each chapter kind of reveals the same reveal to multiple different characters in different spots, and it has cameos of like pretty much the entire cast, or at least relevant cast within the series up until this point. The series, in my opinion, definitely feels like it's coming to a climax. This particular arc has been spanning for a very long time, and it's kind of had a lot of different elements to it, and I find that Toboso's writing is very good at kind of the bait and switch, making you think that one thing is important and then revealing later that that was kind of just preemptive and the real thing or the real relevant element is something else. And Black Butler itself has kind of hit its major reveal of the entire series story with the last volume. This volume was a lot of explanation of how things got to that point, or like how revealing the how and why to the audience and to the characters. And so because it has been doing that, I don't think that there's going to be too much after this, too many volumes. There's definitely going to be a conclusion, and the end of this volume really ramps up how our characters are going to react to certain things in the story. But oh my god, guys, like, Black Butler is one that I really enjoy the manga of, at least. The anime, I don't have a huge issue with the first season, even though it has an anime original ending. I think it was actually done very well. The second season, I think everyone knows it was kind of like, ooh, that's not great. What is this? Why are we watching this weird fan fiction? Although I do like elements of it, it's just like overall such a mess. And then the Book of Circus third season was a pretty close adaptation. The Book of Atlantic film was a pretty close adaptation, and the Book of Murder OVAs was a pretty close adaptation. But I find that a lot of the atmosphere of Black Butler can't be captured super duper well in the anime, and I find that the kind of middling animation quality kind of hurts the anime as well a lot of the time. So Black Butler overall is not like my favorite series. I do find there's kind of like a big tone shift between comedy and then this super duper tense and scary or thrilling stuff. But when it's doing things well, it does them superbly. And you do need that comedic kind of stuff to counterbalance a lot of the very dark themes in this series. I've said this before with regards to this series, but I think this series is one that has a lot of people preemptively judge it because of the fan base that it has or had in the past. A lot of people, a lot of young girls are very in love with this series. It's very kind of Fujo baity, which is very purposeful. Like it's there. I'm not gonna deny it, but I never read it or watched it for those reasons, and I don't think you need to go into it expecting those things to enjoy it. There's so much more to this series to enjoy. And if people enjoy that aspect of it, I don't personally, but if people do, like, who cares? Why is that playing so loud? I expect you guys can hear that, maybe. I don't know, it's very loud. But Black Butler is very, very, very good, and the fact that it's coming to a close, along with a lot of other series that have been kind of this same era, are finally, like, wrapping up. It's kind of sad that, you know, things are ending, and I'm happy that I'm going to be able to see a conclusion to the series, because it is one that deserves it, and Toboso has put a lot of work into the series. There's a lot of creativity, and if you like Victorian thriller and kind of horror mystery, absolutely try this series. It is very good. Don't let the kind of fangirl reputation of it ruin it for you, right? Give it a shot. You might like it. I put it kind of in the same bubble as a lot of other G fantasy series like Pandora Hearts or like Jun Mochizuki stuff in general. It has that same kind of feel. If you like Pandora Hearts, if you're enjoying the case study Vanitas, then check out Black Butler, because they kind of do have a similar feel to them. Next is a book I haven't read yet, just because I'm actually going to wait for the final volume and then read the last 2 volumes together. But I recently read all of what I had available to me for this series. I recently picked it up, so that probably will tell you what it is. But this is one that I was reading digitally, enjoying, found a really good price for from a local seller for a solid chunk of the manga. And so now I'm just picking up the books where I can. And again, this is the penultimate volume, so there's only one more volume that hasn't actually been released yet. So once that has, I'm going to read these two. And that is Happiness Volume 9 by Shuzo Oshimi. I enjoy a lot of Oshimi's titles. I haven't read Flowers of Evil, but I have read Inside Mari, which is very, very good. Currently being released by Dempa. And quite a few of Oshimi's titles are getting releases. A lot of publishers have been publishing or licensing his stuff over the past year. I don't want to open too much because of spoilers for myself, but this is a interesting take on vampire lore within modern day society, modern day Japan, of course, for this story, and kind of what it means to be human, what it means to be a monster, losing humanity, and the struggle of vampirism for modern people, or I guess people with typical morals. It's very, very, very good. And I think this, more than some of Oshimi's other titles, has a lot more rereadability. Just because it's not necessarily... Well, I don't know because I haven't finished it, but I don't think that any major twist will really... there's not a huge amount of, twist or, oh, this is what was happening the whole time, compared to, Inside Mari, or even Flowers of Evil. Flowers of Evil, I just don't like the characters, which is understandable because... Like with Inio Asano, Oshimi doesn't write about good people, or at least he writes about people in a human way, in where they're complicated and people make bad choices or are just bad people or don't have the same kind of moral set that a lot of other people more typical in society do. Nisio Isen actually wrote about this in his novel, and then subsequently in the manga adaptation of it, of Imperfect Girl, and being an author and writing about characters who are not perfect, and writing about those kinds of characters for people who are struggling and who aren't perfect in their own lives. And it really made me consider how... Because I was always aware of obviously unlikable protagonists are perfectly fine to have in your series, and unlikable characters are perfectly fine to have in your series and in your writing. But it was a really interesting insight on why a creator writes about unlikable characters and the choices that they make, and how that reflects on their own creative process, and why their audience is attached to those sorts of people. It's very, very interesting. I do recommend that manga. I don't own it physically. I bought the digital release. But it is very, very, very good. Especially if you're a Nisio Isen fan. But this one is a vampire manga about a high school boy, I believe he's in high school, who's bullied, and then late one night he's attacked by this strange girl. And when he wakes up in the hospital, he's struggling with, just this want to drink blood, basically. He is turned into a vampire. And then, strangely enough, that kind of kicks off his... Obviously, he has had a very physical change, but it kind of changes his emotional... relationships with other people as well. He stops being bullied, and he's actually befriends some of the people who are being mean to him up until this point, and making new relationships, and kind of making or putting a different value on people. It's very, very interesting. And then there's some other stuff about again, what makes someone a monster when we have literal vampires out here running around killing people and drinking their blood versus like serial killers, people who actually murder other people and aren't doing it to drink blood, to eat and survive, but just doing it for the fun of it. Like, it's really interesting. And Oshimi, again, like Asano, is a very, like, he definitely has an atmosphere to his works, and I think you have to be in a particular headspace. But with Happiness, I don't think you need to be as much, like, mentally prepared going into it compared to some of Asano's works. So it is way easier to recommend. But very, very good. And although I haven't read this particular volume, I do encourage you to try the series out. Another volume that I haven't read yet, mainly because I've just been super duper busy being sick this week. But I'm really looking forward to trying it out. I really liked the first volume of this, and considering its popularity in Japan, I have high hopes for it. The third volume just came out, or just was recently released, so I'm still behind. But this is Beastars, Volume 2 by Haru Itagaki, and this is a story about a grey wolf called Lugosi, who is a high school boy. He lives at school, and at school, one of his friends, who is also a herbivore, has been murdered, and nobody knows who it is. He's part of the drama club, of which this character here is the president of the drama club. And so I guess there's this element of obviously conflict between predators and or carnivores and herbivores, or predators and prey. But there's also, so obviously very big relationship between kind of racial or social divides, class divides, things like that. But Lugosi himself is, and then the prejudice of being a certain type of person, and Lugosi as a wolf definitely has some prejudice against him. I mean, these are not new themes. Zootopia did this pretty much exact same plotline, except for it was the main character was in the police department versus it being set entirely within a high school, and obviously being from like the herbivore side of perspective versus the carnivore. Anyway, so these are not new themes, but it's done very well. Haru Itagaki has a great hold on her world that she's built from the series. There's a lot of different elements to how the school as a whole functions when you have classmates who are absolutely tiny little rodents versus some of the largest mammals in the world. Various needs that certain kids within the school have, like if you're an amphibian or if you're a reptile, or it's just really, really well done. So there's an element of Lugosi's relationship to Lewis, who's this deer character on the front here, and then but also with Haru, who is a rabbit, and some of the other people in his school, and obviously again trying to solve this murder and why someone would do this to a guy who is pretty well liked. It's just really, really, really well done. I look forward to reading this volume. I expect with the Netflix anime, although it's not currently, has it been released yet? I'm so behind. It is an anime that is going to be on Netflix if it's not already on Netflix. And I hope that with the Netflix release, it'll encourage more people to try the manga, because I think people would like it. And of course, I mean, make the furry jokes as you will, but anthropomorphic animals are pretty standard way to explore a lot of these types of themes of race and issues and class issues and etc., etc. But hey, the furry uprising is coming, and this isn't the only furry-esque type of book we have here, so I mean, you can't really argue. argue that it's not happening if you want it to. So, yeah, Beastars, Volume 2, check it out. Another volume that I just haven't had the chance to read because I have been sick is Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome SheRahama, Volume 4. Oh my god, it's so beautiful, you guys. Also, I love these little penguin rabbit bird things. I don't know. They're pretty cool. I just love how magical the series is. People compare it a lot to kind of a Ghibli style of story, and it does remind me a lot of that. It also reminds me, although this particular series uses illustration as its magic, kind of magic base, which is really incredible and like a really clever idea, especially for a art-focused series or an art form like manga where illustration is such a huge part of it. But the style of story also reminds me a lot of like the Earthsea novels, where there's larger things happening, but a lot of it is very character introspective. There's a lot to like about this series. It does really remind of, or is very evocative of, a Ghibli story where there are definitely dark things happening, and it doesn't actually shy away from kind of putting the characters in pretty dangerous situations, but the atmosphere always stays pretty magical, and there's always still kind of hope there, which is wonderful. I love this series. It has quickly become one of my favorite series of the past year. Honestly, Kodansha has done a great job with so many of their series this past year, and I love so many of them. They have a great library of previous and ongoing series that are just phenomenal to read all the time. And I cannot wait for Volume 5. It's just one that just keeps giving and giving. And although I haven't read this one yet, probably when I turn the camera off, I'm going to actually read some of these ones that I haven't read yet. Next is another Kodansha series, which has quickly become just one that I love, one that super duper surprised me. I haven't read this one yet, and not because I have been sick, but because I don't have the volume before this, because it has taken forever to ship to me. Don't ask me why. I don't know why, because it's a pain in my butt. But this is O Maidens in Your Savage Season, Volume 4. Written by Mari Okara, and then now Emoto has done the artwork for this. Oh my god. Guys, especially the ladies watching, I really, really, really encourage you to read this story. It's very, very well done, and it's a quite intimate look at female sexuality throughout adolescence. And all the various stages of it, the various ranges of it. We have girls that, if you're not aware, although it did have a very popular anime adaptation just recently, so if you haven't watched it, I would encourage you to do that. I've said this before, I'm not always like a huge fan of Mari Okada stuff. Her stuff ranges from like phenomenal, out there, amazing, like how is this so good, to just, what is this? Like, what is this? I mean, I spoke about the season 2 of Black Butler. She was the writer on that. So, like, there's a big range of stuff here that she's done. But this is absolutely one of her hit the ball out of the park, amazing, phenomenal series, at least so far. This is the story of a literature club in high school, and the various girls who are part of this club. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and each of them have they have an issue in the first volume about talking about sex within the kind of confines of discussing literature, because obviously classic lit has a lot of sex. It's kind of a fairly standard, normal part of life. And so these girls, being kind of high school girls, they bring up this idea of what should we say instead of sex, so it doesn't sound like we're just being kind of, you know, rude and kind of, you know, not pure and innocent as young maidens should be, or whatever. And so it brings up this discussion of sex and intimacy and sexuality within this group of girls who are kind of at their peak in regards to how their bodies and their feelings are changing with regards to wanting sex and having sex. So it's like wonderful. Honestly, it's like so good. We have characters who are just like not into it, or really haven't given it a lot of thought and don't really want to give it a lot of thought, or also characters who just haven't even really considered it an option for them as well, for themselves, I should say. And then there's also characters who are like really keen to experience sex and to be having sex. There's a lot of there's a couple characters who, you know, are actively pursuing it, or at least trying to actively pursue it. It's really, really, really good. I think it's because it has multiple characters experiencing different things that is quite relatable to any young girl or anyone who was once a teenage girl, and the struggle of kind of, because socially young women aren't really expected to be thinking about sex compared to their male counterparts. So that kind of dichotomy of what people expect of you, or what seems socially responsible versus the reality. And it's just wonderful. Mama Loves Manga just recently did a first impressions review on the series, and a lot of what she said resonated a lot with me. I think there's certainly, I think regardless of your sexual history, your dating past, any of that, I think there's something, and your own personal sexuality, whether or not you're heterosexual, homosexual, or asexual as well. I think there's a lot to be gained from this type of discussion of how our bodies kind of put us through the craziness of life, especially during adolescence, and how we deal with that. It's just wonderful. And I absolutely encourage you to try it out. Okay, here are some books that are actually like a little bit older. I have some more kind of quote unquote older books. They're new books, but I bought them secondhand from a local seller because I've been wanting to pick up this series for a long time, and I'm glad that I finally have. Again, people who've watched this channel for a prolonged period know that I love Heart magazine, which is a seinen magazine. A lot of my favorite series come from it. Delicious in Dungeon, A Bride's Story. There's another one that's going on in there that I can't remember right now. But there is a lot of good stuff, and I really haven't been disappointed, aside from maybe Stravaganza, on a series from that magazine. Go with the Clouds, North by Northwest. That's the other one that's currently going on in there. And this series is also an ongoing series from that magazine. It's one that has really been like kind of high priority, but I just, at the Yen Press, their volume prices are so expensive compared to like a lot of other publishers, and they don't really go on sale a lot, or they don't drop price a lot comparatively to like Kodansha, where although they have a high price, a lot of time on like Amazon or other bookstores, they will be like more than 30% off. So I do save a lot of money. But this is Hakumen Micucci Volume 1 and 2 by Takuto Kashiki. And this is a, I guess, Burrowers-esque story about a society of like tiny people who live within the forest, and I guess these two girls, roommates, Hakumen Micucci, friends, maybe lovers, I don't know, that's not part of the story really, but their day-to-day lives and sort of existing as these tiny people within this larger forest. And it's, if you like kind of Ariadne and the Borrowers type of aesthetic, then this may appeal to you. It's absolutely beautiful. It's definitely like a kind of magical slice of life and just is so wonderful. I really, really like all of the various characters. I've already read these 2 volumes and honestly cannot wait for more. It just has a really lovely, again, kind of magical atmosphere to it. And it is a little bit of a, I mean, it's a slice of life, definitely. So it's a relaxed kind of atmosphere and pace. And all of the characters just work really well with each other. I really, really love it. And I cannot wait to read more of this series either. Look how sweet it is. I really, really, really love it. I like this kind of, the skeleton stuff. There's a really interesting part where one of the other people kind of close to them through magic and or science is able to animate skeletons, and you know, move them around and stuff. It's really, really, really sweet. And again, magical. So yeah, it's one that I've been wanting to try for a long time and wanting to get for a long time. Again, I kind of knew with the Harta series, I probably wasn't going to be disappointed. And I wasn't. I think volume 7 just came out, so I'm very far behind. But that's fine. I'll just pick it up whenever I feel like it. Continuing the furry agenda, this next book is a single volume. I loved it a whole bunch. I already really enjoy this creator's work, so I was fairly aware that I would enjoy this book as well. But man, I didn't expect to like it nearly as much as I did. I was super invested in like 90% of this book. And this is The Wise Beasts of the Wizarding Wisdoms by Nagas Bay. This is a single volume, I guess, one-shot collection, BL collection of various Nagas Bay style anthropomorphic characters who are in this very Harry Potter-esque boarding magic school, and their various romantic feelings for their classmates and or others in their lives. Oh my god, guys, okay, like, I don't want to be a furry, but Nagas Bay is just, like, way too effective, right? Okay, so we have some various couples here. We have this cat and, I guess, rabbit? The wolf and the goat. We have the 2 bats. And then these are 2 dragons. So this is obviously, like, it's a magic school. There are also kind of magical creatures there. And on the back we have our other characters. So we have a raven and a peacock. We have a deer or an elk, and then a lizard. Oh my god, that was a good story. Let's just say that. And then we have a griffin and a unicorn, who are both teachers, and then a human and a bear. So, like, the last story is about this relationship with a human, and a lot of these characters, they're called the demi-humans. So because these particular animals were granted magic, they are not really animals anymore. They're seen as demi-humans. And there's various shades of love as well in this book. Nothing is really explicit insofar as, well, there kind of is. There's nothing explicit sexually, let's just say that. It's not one of those books. But there are characters and relationships that are more romantic leaning than others, or more aware of the romantic leaning than others. Yes, okay. It was really, really good. really good. Like, I already expected to like it, right? Because I love Nagas Bay. I love their work. I really like their characters. I like their monster type of style. So I knew that, and I like sweet BL stories. You guys know me. I'm a big softie. I like a bit of romance in my life. This was way too good. Like, it was way, way better than it has any right to be, okay? Like, it was so good. It is, I cannot recommend this book highly enough. I really liked a lot of the character interactions in this book. The bats are very, like, mischievous, and I had a lot of fun with those characters. I thought the cat and the rabbit were sort of a more typical kind of high school love type of story. And, I mean, I already mentioned the deer and the lizard. It was good. And there's a lot of really sweet things in this book, and if you like sweet BL stories, if you like kind of short one and done collections like this, if you don't mind having kind of a element of BL within a more magical setting, if you don't mind the anthropomorphic type of characters, check it out. Like, honestly, check it out. It is very, very good. And I'm probably going to reread this very soon because it's that good. Nagas Bay, I love your work. I'm so glad we're getting your other, like, short story collection book. I'm so glad we're getting The Girl from the Other Side. I just want to read all of your manga. You're just way too good at what you do. And it's kind of concerning for me, alright? Just putting that out there. Next is the second volume of a series where I read the first volume. I really liked it, but the first volume is very, I guess, kind of a prelude or a preface to the, I guess, larger story of the series. And the second volume quickly, like, really, really made this a series that I'm like, oh my god, okay, I, like, legitimately have to buy the new volume, like, as soon as it comes out, because I am just way too attached to this series now. Okay, I did not expect, like, I said that I liked the first volume. I really did. I really enjoyed it. That's why I picked up the second volume. I did not expect to love, like, absolutely just fall in love with the second volume. It's just... Okay, this is Magus of the Library by Mitsu Izumi. It's based off of Kafna of the Wind by Sophie Schwim, which is a novel, I guess. And this is a story of a young guy, a young boy, who is in love with reading. He exists within, I guess, this kind of magical world where various races coexist, and he really stands out because he has bright green eyes, blonde hair, pointed ears, and the rest of the people around him don't. They're very dark. They're kind of more, I mean, they're humans, but they're kind of like dark, like they're not pale. They don't have these bright eyes. None of them are blonde. They're kind of brown skin, black hair, dark eyes. So he, in his childhood, was very, people were very prejudiced against him, and coming from the slums, they kind of really didn't like him being around. The only person who supported him when he was a kid was his sister, who kind of raised him, and then later on some other people in his life. And he loves reading, he loves stories, he loves kind of retreating into the adventure of a story. And in the first volume, he meets this character here, actually, who is a librarian. It inspires him to want to go to the capital city and to become a librarian himself. And it's interesting because it's, as explained in this particular volume, that librarian really isn't... It's a very good job. It's very hard to get into in this volume. He's going to take the librarian exam in the capital city, obviously to try and become a librarian. But it's not really a job that a lot of men go into, because jobs like scholar and merchant and that are much more lucrative. And you can, as a scholar, you can still read and, you know, live amongst books. But our main character, he wants to kind of share and protect books, and that's why he's going into he wants to go into this line of work. We get a much more broad kind of show of the various races that coexist in this world with this volume. And all the various, like, cultural differences. And, okay, like, there's magic and, like, a lot of really interesting things. There is also, if I can find it, where, show me, it might be later on. And we meet a lot of new characters. Okay, look at that alligator. Terrifying. It's got because again, like Magic World, so it's got all of these dinosaurs. Like, I don't know why that the fact that dinosaurs exist as just like animals excites me so much, but it really does. Like, it really, really, really does. And yeah, if you are a fan of reading, like myself, there are more dinosaurs. I'm so into it, guys. This series just has, like, so many elements that I really, really, really love, and I really want to read more about. And the fact that it's based off of a novel, I think gives it a fullness to the world that I think some manga kind of don't really put a huge amount of thought into. And so the fact that it is such a large and a pre-existing book and novel or whatever, that I do think there's a lot of potential for how this series wants to go. And I like these types of books anyway. If you like kind of a fantasy book series, it kind of reminds me, although, like, it's kind of a different genre, different type of character, like, there's a lot of differences, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of Ascendance of the Bookworm. And there's been a lot of, like, book lover type of series recently, and I'm here for it. As a book lover myself, I'm here for it. Really, really enjoyed the second volume. Cannot wait till volume 3. Honestly, cannot wait. Can't wait to explore more of the world. And again, it reminds me a lot of Witch Hat Atelier, which then subsequently reminds me of the Earthsea novels and other, like, various magic type of fantasy. Just, I don't know, it's just really good. It also, and call me crazy, I don't know if I'm just reaching for this, but it kind of reminds me a lot of the 12 Kingdoms as well, which is a series I adore, so that's not a bad thing in my book. But it just is reminiscent and does things that I love, and therefore I'm going to keep reading it. And I hope it continues, because it's so good. It's so good. Next are some older releases, ones that, again, I've been meaning to get forever, and it kind of, with something else that came out this month, it finally encouraged me to pick up these last 2 volumes so I could finally complete the series and read it in its entirety. Couple things that encouraged me to pick this up. But this is Sunny by Taiyo Matsumoto, volume 3 and volume 5. I already had 1, 2, 4, and 6, which is a 6-volume series, so now I have all of it. This is a slice of life, kind of coming of age drama story about a group of kids in an orphanage in the 70s, and their various kind of interactions with the people around them, and as life as orphans or kids who are left to this orphanage, because a lot of them aren't orphans so much, they're more so their parents leave them there to kind of, there's definitely some child abandonment here, but there's also a level of like, oh, I'm going to, make my life better and then I'll come back for you. So there's some issues here, right? And so it's a group of these kids who feel abandoned, and kind of their relationships with each other and people outside of the orphanage and all of that. It's very, very good. I mean, I don't really need to say that I'm a Taiyo Matsumoto fan, because I definitely am. I love his work, and I make no secret of that. The fact that Ping Pong was recently licensed, finally, is incredible, and I am so looking forward to that. Viz has really put out, now that Ping Pong's been licensed, has put out almost everything, especially everything of note from Matsumoto's library of works. I love Tekken King Creed. That was the first, and I think a lot of people's first exposure to his writing and his manga, with the film, and obviously the manga was released by Viz. This has been released by Viz for a very long time. Cats of the Louvre was just recently released by Viz. But then there's also like Blue Spring, which Viz put out ages and ages ago. It's very hard to find and out of print, which is a collection of short stories from Matsumoto. As well as, is it number 9? Or something. And which only I think got 2 or 3 volumes out in English before it was dropped. Which I do not have, but I do own everything else that they've put out. Oh, and Go-Go Monster, which is really, really, really good. Love Go-Go Monster. Probably, everything of his is different. Even the art style changes a lot, and everything is so uniquely Taiyo Matsumoto, right? There's just, everything he does is just emblematic, and he's continuing to evolve, and all of his stories are very valuable in sort of the messages that they have, and it just continues to be really, really, really great, and a creator that I absolutely adore and respect. And I'm so happy to finally have the opportunity to finish reading this series, because it's honestly kind of a travesty that I've waited so long to pick up these last 2 volumes. And speaking of Cats of the Louvre, I got Cats of the Louvre by Taiyo Matsumoto, obviously. Again, this is a beautiful book, a single hardcover volume. Look at that beautiful spine of Matsumoto's Louvre edition. You can see here the Futuropolis in the Louvre edition. So this is, I've spoken before about these kinds of manga where in partnership with the Louvre, which is, if you're not aware somehow, it is the art gallery in France and in Paris specifically that is kind of world-renowned. It's where the Mona Lisa is. It's where countless very, very famous art pieces reside and are protected. And every so often, I think every year actually, they have a comic artist from anywhere, any kind of comic artist, to write a comic about whatever they want, but it has to take place within the Louvre and kind of have the Louvre as a setting. Araki has written one with Rohan at the Louvre, and then we also have Jiro Taniguchi, which is Guardians of the Louvre, and so now we have Taiyo Matsumoto with Cats of the Louvre. And those previous 2 are available in English from various retailers online, but you can buy them in the gift store of the Louvre. I'm sure you'll be able to buy this in the gift store of the gallery as well in the future, but this is originally a 3-volume set, normally they're only like a single volume, which is why this is a little bit of a different case, and I think why Viz took the opportunity to license it versus just Futuropolis and the more typical publisher of these comics to translate it and release it. This is a 3-volume series about a group of cats who live in the attic of the famous gallery, and then kind of their day-to-day lives and some of the people who work in the Louvre and their relationship to these cats. And there's one cat who's very different from the others. He never grows up, and he's kind of a little bit spacey. He just spends his day looking at the paintings, and the other cats find him weird. And then it's explained by the groundskeeper that a similar thing happened to his sister. She would always space out and just look at the paintings, and she'd never grow up. And so there was this definite like Alice through the looking glass type of feeling of these individuals really need to exist, or they're kind of destined to exist within these paintings. They don't need, or they're not supposed to be existing within our world, and that the painting, the art itself is calling to them. It's a very interesting little idea. Like with Taniguchi and Araki as well, it's very much within Matsumoto's style. Like, even though it is written for the gallery and for the setting, because of that, the setting has to kind of show off the artwork within. It doesn't feel like the officials were like breathing down these comic creators' necks to make something that they wouldn't make themselves and isn't representative of their kind of art and art style in general. This is a beautiful book. It's bizarre and weird, and if you're not into that, maybe this isn't for you. But Taiyo Matsumoto is incredible in how well he captures, I guess, I don't want to say humanity because these are cats, but just the fact that all of these cats feel like very real people or very real characters, but they feel like cats as well. They do have, I guess, human versions of themselves, and it's really interesting watching the dynamics of the cats and their relationships to each other, and the relationship to this particular cat who is on the front cover, who is kind of like an oddity amongst them. And it's so good. It's so good, guys. Again, Taiyo Matsumoto, phenomenal creator. Cannot wait for Ping Pong. When this was announced, I was ecstatic. Honestly, made my day. And I'm so happy to have it in hand, finally, and to treasure it always. And check it out, especially if you're interested in this creator, or if you like kind of the Louvre comics in general, if you're a fan of fine art and you don't mind a bit of surrealism or a little bit of magical realism, I guess is probably the better word to use. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Cannot say even more than that. So, that is everything that I got in the month of November. Honestly, not a huge amount. Like, manga-wise especially, not a huge amount. There's 3, 6, 9, 11, 12. So, kind of like half of what my normal manga buying has been. But, a little bit obvious that I wouldn't be buying a huge amount this month, just because, for any of you who don't know, I've had to pay for my car to be fixed because I hit a kangaroo and the bonnet did not like that, let's just say. So, a lot of my money went towards that this past month, a month and a half, really. So my spending has been kind of a very purposeful, mindful thing, which it should always be, but next month will be a lot. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but let's just say next video, thanks to sales, thanks to all of that, I caught up on quite a few things, and I started some things, and I think I don't know. I have pre-orders, I have older books coming, I've got anime coming, so there'll be a lot to talk about in December. But yes, this time around, I have more anime than usual, and of course with this, it is kind of not a usual thing for me to get a Japanese release or anything like that. But I think overall it's been kind of a quiet month. But all of this manga especially, super duper love them and excited, especially the new stuff. The old stuff too. Sunny and Hakumen Micucci were great. But there's so much wonderful series, and I cannot encourage people enough to start reading some of these series. So, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on any of these series, whether it be the manga, the anime. I didn't really talk about anything else. So, what you've picked up this last couple weeks and over the month. Let me know your thoughts on any of these currently ongoing titles. If you're reading them, if you're loving them, if you're hating them, let me know why. I love to read those comments, and I do try to respond to each and every one of them. Otherwise, as always, my social media is in the description below, as well as my book depository affiliate link, although don't feel any obligation to click on that. I know for friends in the US, you guys are celebrating, you've had Thanksgiving, now it's sale season, so I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving, whether you spent that with your friends or with your family, hopefully with the people you care most about. And if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving like myself, because one, I don't live in the US, two, I don't have really any family here aside from my Australian family, so that's they don't celebrate. We do have the sale season though for some reason. But I hope everybody had a wonderful day, had a lot of good food. For any of you who missed it, yesterday actually I posted the most recent episode of the Read Right to Left podcast that I co-host with the wonderful Whimsical Pictures, and we are talking about food manga in the spirit of the season, where we talk about some of our favorite food manga, as well as some food manga that exist but we don't read because they're not really what we're super duper interested in, and hopefully you guys enjoy that one. It took so long for me to get that one out, one, because I've been sick, but two, Audacity has been a pain in my butt, and that recording was very, very hard to edit. So don't say I'd never do anything for you guys, because I worked very hard whilst coughing up a lung trying to get that out. But regardless, hopefully it came out okay, and hopefully you guys enjoy that. I do post on Twitter and also on YouTube in the communities tab 4 questions for the podcast, if you have not, or if you have a question for the podcast, depending on the topic. So feel free to contact me via there. Even if it's not for the podcast, just if you want to follow me there, or just reach out to me, message me, or just wanna follow. I'm on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram, but like rarely ever, so don't really worry about that too much. And my DMs are always open. Please be civil. I will always try to respect you as long as you respect me. Thanks a bunch. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. I am Simply G. I need to go and cough, so I'm not going to spend too much longer on here, but I hope you guys enjoy, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye till then.